Thank you all for joining us today. I know everybody's really busy this time of year, so I will keep this as short as possible with giving you the information you need. Today, we're going to go over how your employees, if you use ESS, and if you're not currently using ESS, the employee self-service, we can talk afterwards about how to get your district set up on that. If you would like to allow your employees to receive their W-2s digitally. Let's see, let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you all are seeing my checklist here, the guide, so to speak, of the USPS-ESS W-2 digital delivery. So we'll go over the steps, but basically what this is your staff can elect to only receive their W-2 electronically. So you would not be printing them the mailable 8.5 by 14 form. It would only, when you run those, it's only going to run for people that's not opted into the delivery, and then you can send them an email that says, hey, your W-2 is available for printing from ESS. So, like I said, if you're not already set up with ESS and you're interested in this, we can have a conversation later, just put in a ticket. So again, first things, if they opt into it, they only can get their W-2 electronically. You will not be mailing them a copy. It's important to, make sure they know that they're not going to get a printed copy mailed to them. So to get this set up, first you're going to go into USPS and you're going to go to System Configuration, W-2 Configuration, and you're going to turn on the Enable W-2 Digital Delivery. So what that looks like is in USPS, you go to System Configuration, W-2 Configuration, you're going to click on Edit, and you're going to check the box that says Enable W-2 Digital Delivery, and then you're going to save that. What that does when you check that box is under the employee screen, so if I go to the employee screen, if I view somebody, all the way down at the bottom, we now have some new fields. This checkbox, which would mean that they have opted into digital only W-2s. And this is the date in which they opted into that. Also, you would be able to add those fields to your employee grid by going to More. All the way down at the bottom, we have this W-2 digital delivery. I can check these two items. And after it updates, you'll see I have these two fields in here. So if I want to see my employees that have opted into a digital only W-2, I can come here and put a T. And this is my lowly employee that has opted into this and the date and time stamp in which they opted in. This is useful in case you want to run reports or do any comparison or anything like that. The other thing that it does is when you go to reports and W-2 reports, you will have a new sort option, which is digital only W-2. And what that does is when I select that, I'm going to go to report. When I select that sort option and I got to pretend I'm in 2024. And I generate this report. Go back to the notes here. It sorts it by, I believe, employees that are opted into a digital only W-2 are at the end of your report. So I generated that report, and you will see now, it's bigger. We have a new field on here that says digital only W-2, yes or no. So I can scroll through here, and French should be at the bottom. So here is my one employee that is opted in. She's at the bottom of my report because that's how it's sorting. And she's the only one that's got a yes here. Additionally, on your W-2 report, you now have some new numbers here. So you have your total number of employees, your total number of W-2 forms, and then the number of printed forms. So just a little note about this. So in this case, I have 19 employees, 19 forms, but only 18 printed forms because I have this one employee who will not get a printed copy. She's only going to get a digital copy. A thing about this here, and this is new, is if you have an employee or lots of employees that have extra forms because they have multiple cities, this will now tell you exactly how many forms that you need. So whereas before, I think it just told you, oh, you have 200 employees. Well, it may not, you wouldn't have known that you had actually needed to print 220 forms because of, the extra form that needs to get printed. So that's a nice little feature here. So that's what happens in USPS when you enable the digital W-2. That's your step one to getting this set up. Well, if you already have ESS. Next, you would go into ESS and you're going to turn on the digital delivery within ESS. So that is logged in here. So that's going to be under System, Configuration, and W-2 configuration. And I would check this box. This is already set up. This is the legal notice. Basically, that tells them that, hey, if you are opting into this, you are not getting a digital or a paper copy of your W-2. You can change this. So if I wanted to add some information in here, I could do that. And if I decide, oh, I don't really want to add that in there, I don't like it here, I can reset to default and it's going to bring it right back to this. So once I check this box, I'm going to hit save. And when you do that, let's see, let's go back here. So now the employees have the option to opt into this. So how do they do that? I'm going to log out as me. I'm going to sign in. So this is my employee, and if he wants to opt in to the digital delivery, I have the steps on this little guide here, and I've included some screenshots. So the first step is they're going to come down here to their user profile, and they're going to click on their name, and then they're going to click on the down arrow and hit profile. From here at the very bottom, we have the W-2 acknowledgement. So then this is that verbiage that we just saw a minute ago. So if you wanted to update that for any reason, you could do it in your configuration. They then have to type their name, and it actually tells them exactly what they have to type. It just have to be their full legal name according to what is in USPS. So this is what's on their profile. If I try to just type, I'll show you what it does. If it has a D in here for his middle name, so I didn't type. I just want to show you what it does. Your only option, you cannot. I don't think it allows you to backdate it. I think if I try to do that, it's going to error out. And then you have decisions in here. So obviously, if they're opting in, they are consenting to receiving their digital only W-2. If at any point they decide, you know what, I don't like that, I still want a paper copy, they can come in and revoke it too. So we're going to consent. And when I say submit, it says, oh, your signature is incomplete. So I got to come in here and I got to put the D in. And now I can submit. Now it's all grayed out. I've consented. So over back in USPS, if I find that employee, now he is also true for receiving that, and this is the date and time stamp in which he agreed to that. So that's instantaneous in USPS. He can also print this acknowledgement. So if he just clicks on that, he'll get a PDF version of that and his signature. And it says that he consents to a digital only W-2. If he wants to revoke it, he just comes in here, says revoke, and submits. And if he does that, I go back to USPS, refresh. Yes, it is the employee's decision to opt in. They do not have to. So that's kind of the deal. Okay, let me pause there for a moment. So now he's false, and it does have a date and time stamp because that's the date and time in which he revoked his digital only. So the deal with the W-2 digital, some districts have asked about just sending them digitally. Well, you can't do that unless the employee agrees to it. The employee has to agree that they're only going to get their W-2 electronically and not a printed copy, which is why to date we've been printing every single one and mailing them. The way this works now is when they opt into this, when the employee says, yep, I opt in, I'm only going to get it digitally. Now USPS can recognize that and is able to easily sort those people out. And when you go to at the end of the year, and we'll talk more about this at calendar year end, but so when you come in here, so the employees opted in, and so you come in here and you're going to do your mailable forms. So these are your printed copies that you mail out. Because we have digital only turned on, it will not. So actually, I'll just run these for you so you can see. So French, my Brandy French is still opted into receiving her W-2 electronically. So if I run these forms for 2024, I should only take a minute. There's not too many. Okay. So if I go look at my forms, so now if I search for French, she doesn't have a form in here. So the system's able to recognize that she only gets hers electronically.
No. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Is she? Okay.
Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Did I answer the question? Okay, so we walked through all the steps of how the employee opts into this. Just as, let's see, go back in here. So let me log out as him.
Tanya, quick question.
Yes.
What if the employee comes to us and they sign up for this, getting it digitally, and they come to us and say, is there any way you can print us a copy? Will we be able to print them a copy also? Because you know that's going to happen.
Well, okay, so first of all, so let me back up here. Before I get into that, I'm going to log in as French here. No. Hang on, I'll get the password in a minute. So there's a little bit of an issue at this point in time that SSDT is working on, and I'm not worried about it. I'm sure they'll come up with a workaround before calendar year end. But because that is turned on, when you are in, when you do your mailable forms, it doesn't create a form for them. If you do the employer copies, so the forms from here, it also does not create a copy. So you won't have, at this point in time, which I fully expect this to change, you won't have one giant report like you do now of all of your W-2s. But because of the way ESS works, those of you that have been using ESS and putting your W-2s in there, you have to run this right here, the archive individual forms. This is the process that you do to put the forms in ESS. That is not changing. That is still how they get their W-2s. So when you run that, you will have under your file archive, this W-2 archive. And so here is where those forms will be. So if I look at this, all of my employees' forms are still in here. So yes, to answer your question, you could come in here and print a copy of their W-2. There's just not a super convenient way to print all of the W-2s and one like we do now. But I do expect SSDT to come up with, so under reports, and when you do the employer copies of the forms, I expect them to have like an override in here that will allow you to generate an employer copy of the form for every single employee that you could print off at a later point. But also keep in mind, as long as they have access to ESS, they can always print a copy because it's always available in here. But I do understand that sometimes they can't log in, you've deleted them as a user, they've been gone for 3 years, whatever those situation may be, you would still have that form in the W-2 file archive. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. I saw another question. Let me find my chat. Hang on. How does the employee know this is available? Is it district driven or ESS driven? So do you mean that this feature is available or that their W-2 is available? I can answer both, but I'll answer both. So how do they know this feature is available? That's up to you as the district to get that information. Yeah, you're going to have to communicate to your district or to your staff that, hey, this is available now. This is how you know, like I said, I'm going to, after this meeting, I haven't sent this out yet because I've been working on it and adding additional details. So I will send this out so you could modify this a little bit so that they could have the steps on exactly how they, well, this right here, how to get to their profile and opt into this. Just make sure that they are full aware that they will not get a mailed copy to them. But at the same time, even though they're not getting a mail copy, you have the ability to give them access to it sooner. So maybe you set it up so they have access to it on January 15th, but maybe you don't mail your paper copies until January 15th, so they're not getting them till the 17th, 18th, whatever. So they can get it earlier. Okay, sidetracked. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So on this guide that I'll send everybody, I just put in here SSDT's frequently asked questions because I thought they would be helpful. When an employee signs the W-2 acknowledgement consent form, what are they consenting to? Well, it's exactly what is listed on the top of that screen when they're opting into it. The biggest thing is that they're responsible for printing it and having the ability to print it and access it. And so it actually has, let me just go back into it because I think it'd be easier to see there. So it kind of tells them right here that they have to have a device with internet access, a supported web browser, and a PDF reader because it downloads in PDF. And it's at their responsibility to keep their contact information up to date. So this is what they're agreeing to when they opt in. Does anybody get an email when they opt into this? No, they do not. So the only way you're going to know is that they've opted in is one, you can go into USPS and under the employee, you can add those two items to your grid and you could sort by crew to see who's opted in. But also in ESS, let me find it. You have the district W-2 acknowledgements. So you can come in here and you can see who has opted in. So that's another way that you can see who's opted in. So you're not emailed when they opt in, but it's an easy way to find it. So agency is recommending that you establish a cutoff date because what you don't want is you don't want to be in the middle of creating W-2s and whatnot, and you have people going in and switching around their consents, right? You don't want to run your W-2s and then have somebody revoke their consent after you've already processed and now you've not mailed a copy and it's a whole thing. So they recommend that when you roll this out to your districts, you give them a cutoff. So maybe it's December 15th. I don't, depending on your district, maybe it's December 1st, whatever that is. Those of you that have a later payroll, maybe you could go up until December 20th because you still have a payroll you're running on the 30th. But if your last pay is on 15th or the 20th, you might want to cut it off somewhere around the 1st. And the only way to actually cut it off is you would go into, you would basically disable the ability. So you would go into ESS and go to that system configuration, W-2 configuration, and uncheck the allow digital delivery. So that way nobody else can opt in, but it will not change the status. So if I do that, so I'm going to disallow this and save it so nobody else can opt in. Just refresh. But I can still see here that Brandy has opted in. So it doesn't change their consent in any way. But if I were to log in, he no longer has the ability to opt in. So you would just have a time frame in which they can't change it. So once it's done, it's set, and then you could turn it back on after your W-2 process is done. So maybe late January, you could turn it back on for people to opt back into it if they want to, or make changes in general. This we've kind of already talked about what happens. So when they opt into it, they no longer get a printed copy. It's only available digitally in ESS, which they can then download. So actually, let me show you what that looks like for those of you that don't know. So once you've processed your W-2s, they could come out here to view print W-2, and they can download it. Going to give them a PDF version that they can print. Also up here in the upper right hand corner, they can download the IRS employee notice. This is the little blurb that's on the back of the W-2 forms. it's right here that they can download and read it, since they're not getting it, you know, the printed copy. So the only thing that digital only W-2 sort option is when you're in the W-2 report is sorts, puts those people at the very bottom. That's the only thing that it's doing. Okay, is there a way to notify employees when their digital W-2s are available? Yes. So, I'm sorry, I'm signing in and out 100 million times. So as a district administrator or manager, you can come into under system. So under system, you have W-2 mass email. So this will be blank in your instance. This is a sample of what you could put in here, and I did in this, I did kind of print it out here if you wanted to. See, so I haven't sent it out yet. You can copy this if this is the verbiage that you want, but you can absolutely change it. But this is what you would email to those that have opted in. So just your W-2 is ready to view. This is how you view it. Please note when logging into ESS, you need to have a device with internet access, web browser, and a PDF reader. If you have any questions, contact the treasurer's office, you know, whatever you want to say there. And then you save it. Once you're good, you will send it, and it only sends it to those that have opted in to receiving it digitally. We've already reviewed this. If an employee decides they want to go back to getting a paper copy, they just have to log into their profile and revoke their decision. Here's a big question, and unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you, but what happens if the employee elects to receive their W-2 digitally, but resigns before the end of the calendar year? How will they receive their W-2? Well, that's a conversation you guys need to have internally and with that employee, because if they have opted in, that's the only place it's going to go is ESS, unless they opt out before they lose access to ESS. Or maybe you continue to allow them to have access to ESS until the end of the calendar year, in which case, you know, maybe you give them a month or so after it's available, and then if you wanted to go in and disable users at that point. But that's kind of an internal decision that you guys have to figure out what's going to work best for your district. The W-2Cs, if you happen to have to create one of those, they are not digital. You're going to create it, print it, and send it to them, but they do still have access to the W-2C in ESS after it's been created. So that's what I have. I think I've covered everything. Does anybody have any questions? Did I miss anything? Nothing? Okay. Well, if that's everything, I will send out this this guide. We'll post this to our website, this webinar, so you can review it later if you want to. I just wanted to get the information out as soon as possible, so internally everybody can start having those conversations, whether or not this is something you want to offer. If you want to offer it, but you're not already set up with ESS, please put in a ticket and we can have that conversation. So if that's all, I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.